Talks, which is organized by Department of Pharmacology, Young Scientists and Clinicians Network, and also Publication Committee, SPI. I am Dr. Nurul Izzah, a lecturer from Pharmacology Department, will be the moderator for this webinar. So today we are honored to have two excellent speakers, Prof. Dr. Iman Nirwana Sulaiman and Associate Prof. Dr. Chin Kok Yong. Both of them are from Department of Pharmacology, UKM. First, we will start off with a talk entitled Ethics in Scientific Writing by Prof. Dr. Iman Nirwana Sulaiman. But before we start, please allow me to read on Prof. Iman's biography. Prof. Dr. Iman Nirwana Sulaiman is a professor of pharmacology from the Faculty of Medicine, UKM. She had served as Deputy Dean, Research and Innovation, Faculty of Medicine, UKM, from 2012 until 2017. Her research interests are natural products, bone metabolism, and osteoporosis. Her H index is 39, with total citation of more than 5,000. She has authored more than 300 journal articles, 9 books, and 12 chapters in books. She had been awarded and recognized by a lot of awards, such as Gold Medal in 34th International Exhibition of Invention, Techniques and Products in Geneva, Switzerland, 2006. Gold Medal in Invention and New Product Exposition in USA, 2008. And Gold Medal in Belgian and International Trade Fair for Technological and Innovation Brussels in 2013. She has been selected by Elsevier as one of 10 women in science for International Women's Day in 2015. She had received National Book Award 2020-2021 for serba-serbi kesihatan tulang dan penyakit osteoporosis. So therefore, with these awards and experiences, she is indeed a good, prolific writer in journal articles as well as books. Without further ado, let's welcome her to share about the ethics in scientific writing. So the floor is yours, Prof. You can start.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Izzah.
Yes, Prof.
Okay, thank you very much, Izzah. That was a very kind introduction. Yeah? Okay, so I will share my screen. Okay, there you are. Assalamualaikum and good afternoon. So the topic of my talk is on ethics in scientific writing. Yeah. Okay. So without further ado, I'll just go ahead. Okay. This with some of my colleagues, I have written a book on the do's and don'ts of writing a research manuscript. So part of it is on ethics. Yeah. So pages 33 to 60. I think this book is still on sale in Shopee. So you can take a look at it if you're interested. Yeah. Okay. So a lot of the material I'm presenting today is included in the book. Okay. We will start with definition of ethics. Yeah. Now, ethics means the definition of ethics is moral principles that govern a person's behavior or the conduct of an activity. And it is also society's perception of what is right and wrong. So it may or may not be legally wrong, yeah? Okay, but some portion of ethical violation, especially the more serious ones, can be a legal matter, yeah? Okay, so this is a quotation that I like very much. Integrity without knowledge is weak and useless. And knowledge without integrity is dangerous and dreadful. Okay, so knowledge without integrity is dangerous and dreadful. So it is always important to be ethical in whatever you do, especially in the dissemination of knowledge. Okay, types of ethics violation. So ethics violation can be broadly classified into 4, which is plagiarism, self-plagiarism, the lesser crimes of writing, authorship issues, and conflicts of interest. So I will go through this one by one. Before I go to the ethics violations, I'll just briefly mention the copyright law. Okay, copyright law. The usual arrangement in scholarly and scientific research publications is for the copyright to be transferred to the publisher of the journal. The journal can then reproduce and distribute the author's work legally. So the usual arrangement or the usual practice is for the journal to own the copyright, not the author. Yeah. So therefore, authors cannot sell hard copies or soft copies of the articles. Now, the corresponding author, commonly receives email from researchers all over the world asking for a copy of such and such an article. Now, it is actually against the law, against the copyright law to share or to just send them a copy of the article. Because the copyright is owned by the journal, and the reader or the person who wants to read the article actually have to pay the journal to read the article. So it is actually wrong for the author to just pass or send the article to whoever who requests it. Yeah. Okay, now this is the usual arrangement. Now, nowadays, open access journals are very popular. Yeah. Okay, now the copyright law and open access journals. Pure open access journals, sorry that my slides are very wordy here, but I think I don't think I should actually summarize this info, because it might give the wrong understanding or the wrong meaning. So, okay, now pure open access journals allow the author to retain the copyright in their articles. Okay, now the author can be the copyright owner in pure open access journals. Articles are made available under a Creative Commons license, usually attribution only or CC BY. So the what is required is for the person who wants to use the information or cite the information to attribute it to the author and the journal in the correct way. To allow others to freely access, copy, and use the research provided the author is correctly attributed. Yeah, you can look up this website to read up. I'm not going to present everything because it's very long. Yeah. Okay, Creative Commons licenses are likely to be added to the article by the journal publisher, but you should check with them when submitting. Okay. As you retain the copyright, you can distribute the final published version of the article in any way you wish. Okay, so if it is an open access journal and the author retains the copyright, then you are free to distribute your paper. So if anybody were to ask you for a copy of the paper, you can give them. Yeah, there's no problem in that. As long as, it's the responsibility of the other person who asked for your paper to cite you correctly. Otherwise, he or she is it is an ethical violation, if they don't cite you correctly. But you are free to distribute your article. Now, hybrid open access journals give the author the option of publishing the article as open access or publishing via the traditional method. The author or their institution will usually have to pay an article processing charge, APC, to make the article open access, but in doing so retains copyright of the article, and which is published under an open license such as CC BY. However, author may choose not to publish the article as open access and instead sign a copyright transfer agreement, meaning they lose the copyright in all versions of the article. Okay, so most journals nowadays have both options. So it's up to the author. If you choose the open access type, then you will have to pay the journal to get your paper published, and you will retain the copyright. But if you do not want to pay, then you can opt for the traditional way, And you don't have to pay, but you are not, you don't have copyright and you cannot distribute the article as you like it, yeah? So actually nowadays with citation index, H index and all that, authors, if you want your paper to be cited, usually opt for open access, but you have to pay the journal lah, yeah? Okay. Okay, so now I go to plagiarism. Definition of plagiarism. The Oxford Dictionary defines plagiarism as the practice of taking someone else's work or ideas and passing them off as one's own. The American Association of University Professors define plagiarism as taking over the ideas, methods, or written words of another without acknowledgement and with the intention that they be taken as the work of the deceiver. Okay, so it's longer, but it means more or less the same thing, meaning that you steal other people's work and claim it as your own work. Yeah. So it originates from the Latin word plagiarus, meaning kidnapper. Hence, it literally means kidnapping someone else's work. Okay, so you're stealing other people's work, yeah? Okay, now plagiarism can be further divided into plagiarism of ideas, plagiarism of text, inappropriate paraphrasing, paraphrasing highly technical knowledge, plagiarism and common knowledge, and plagiarism and authorship dispute. I will go through one by one. Plagiarism of ideas. Appropriating an idea, example, an explanation, a theory, a conclusion, a hypothesis, a metaphor, in whole or in part or with superficial modification into one's work must be properly acknowledged or properly cited. So sometimes, yeah, when you are just chit-chatting with your colleague or with somebody else, yeah, another researcher who is not involved in your research, but you maybe you chit-chat and you tell that person about your work or some problem that you're stuck with, and then he gives you an idea, or he helped to explain something, or he bring forward a theory, or he helped you with the conclusion, the hypothesis, whatever, which you actually use in your work, in your research, and is useful and it help you to get the results, yeah, you must acknowledge him. It is not right, yeah, if you claim everything as your own work without acknowledging him. Now, how do you acknowledge? Because it is not a written paper. This is the way you do it. For example, the name is Smith 2016 personal communications. Okay, you have to acknowledge it and list it in the reference list as personal communications. Okay. This people may think this is not so important because it's not written. Nobody can prove that he gave you the idea and whatnot. But it is important for you to maintain good relationship with fellow researchers and fellow scientists. It's important, yeah, because experiments or research is not done in silos. It is done with collaboration from various parties, yeah. Okay, the next is plagiarism of text. This is common, I'm sure everybody knows. We must always acknowledge every source that we use in our writing, whether we paraphrase it, summarize it, or enclose it in quotations. Okay, paraphrasing and summarizing. Now, what is paraphrasing? Paraphrasing is restating, rewording text from a source using your own words, usually to make it clearer, also to fit into the flow of the text. Now, it's important, yeah, your own words. This is important. For example, this is a sentence, and the author has written a sentence which he paraphrased it in his own words, and he indicate the reference here. Okay. Now, what about summarizing? Summarizing is to condense or shorten a substantial amount of material into a short paragraph, or perhaps even into a sentence in your own words. Again, it is in your own words, yeah? Usually to collect several references with similar message into one sentence or paragraph. Again, this is an example. This author, he has condensed, I think 7 references references into one long sentence. Yeah? So this is an example of summarizing. Yeah. Okay, so that is paraphrasing and summarizing. And another thing that you need to know is paraphrasing highly technical language. Whether we are paraphrasing or summarizing, we must always identify the source of the information. Okay, that's one point. When paraphrasing and or summarizing others' work, we must reproduce the exact meaning of the other author's ideas or facts using our own words and sentence structure. So it is important that you don't lose the meaning of the other author's work. Yeah, don't lose the meaning or don't give the wrong meaning, because that would be an ethical violation. Yeah. And it's very important you use your own words. This is what we always tell our students, right? That they must read the paper, understand the paper, and then write in their own words. Yeah. So in this case, you do not use quotation marks. I will tell you later when you use quotation marks. Yeah. Okay. Inappropriate paraphrasing. Incorrect or inappropriate paraphrasing or summarizing is ethics violation. The author must have a thorough understanding of the ideas and terminology being used. Okay, so it's an ethics violation if you give the wrong message through your paraphrasing or summarizing. So you must read and understand your source. And this is the danger of citing from abstract. Because if you cite from abstract, you are actually citing from a summary that the author made of the work. Okay, so you might not fully understand the work. So it's important that you actually read the paper and cite from the paper rather than just read an abstract and cite. Okay. Okay, now this is when you need to use quotation marks. Verbatim text. Verbatim, the word means copied, quoted, or translated in exactly the same words as were used originally. Any verbatim text taken from another author must be enclosed in quotation marks, meaning copy and paste lah. Okay, something that we don't encourage students to do, copy and paste. Yeah, but if you have to do it, please enclose in quotation marks, for example, yeah. And then you cite the source. So in this case, the source is Bouvard et al. 2010. This is exactly his words, so you must put in quotation marks. Because if you don't put in quotation marks, readers might think these are your words, or you have paraphrased what is written by Bouvard et al. Okay, so Bouvard et al. Can actually sue you for stealing his words. Yeah, so if you have to copy and paste, please put in quotation marks. Yeah. Okay, and the next one is plagiarism and common knowledge. If the material we are discussing is assumed to be known by the readership, that is common knowledge, then no need to cite its origin. Okay, if the information is common knowledge. Yeah. For example, the concept is the movement of sodium and potassium ions across a cell membrane. Now, the author is a seasoned neuroscientist. The readership is readers of a scientific journal. So these two scientists, this is considered common knowledge. Yeah, everybody knows. So you need not provide a citation. Okay, you can use this information in your discussion, in your introduction, in your explanation. You need not provide a citation because this is common knowledge, but it will depend on the readership, yeah, who the author is and who the readership are. Yeah. Okay, now when in doubt, provide a citation. If you are not sure whether this is common knowledge or not, it is always safer to provide a citation. Okay, plagiarism and authorship dispute. Okay, to describe this, it's easier to use a scenario, yeah? Okay, so for example, you have two researchers who have collaborated on various projects in the past, and they have jointly published a number of papers. However, while working on a manuscript from one of their joint projects, the researchers experienced a difference of opinion leading to the breakup of their association, meaning they had a quarrel, and then after that, they are not on good terms anymore. A year later, the remaining researcher decides to finish writing the manuscript and submits it for publication with his name as the sole author. Okay, so one of the researchers published and he did not write the name of the other researcher as an author, yeah? Now, is this plagiarism? It is, yeah? It is plagiarism because he did not acknowledge the work, or the ideas, the work which is being, which was put in by the other researcher. And is this authorship dispute? Yes, it is, because if the other researcher, well, from the story, the other researcher contributed equally, yeah, to the research. So if there is equal contribution, then the other researcher should be listed as an author. Okay, so this is both plagiarism and authorship dispute, yeah. Okay, so please don't quarrel with your research colleague, because it will bring about difficulties, yeah. Okay, now this one, this plagiarism of the whole article. Nowadays, we are finding more and more cases of researchers or authors plagiarizing the whole article, yeah? Now, this means appropriating a whole article, just changing the title and the author names. Now, this is a serious ethical violation, yeah? Sometimes when they present a clinical trial, for example, they just change slightly the sample size, or they just change the location of the study, things like that. Yeah, but otherwise everything else is the same. This is a serious ethical violation. The first published article is considered genuine, and subsequent articles are considered as plagiarized. So when this happens, the first article is the genuine, and whatever articles that is published after that is the plagiarized article, is the guilty party lah, yeah. Okay, so sometimes when you are doing literature review or searching the internet for literature to write or to do a project, and then you find that actually that your work is published under a different author and under a different title, yeah. So that has happened before, yeah. Okay, now what you should do if that happens is to inform the first and second journals and your faculty dean and legal advisor. Okay, because you will need support if there are any complications arising. But you must also inform the first and second journals, and the second journal should take down the article and report the authors to relevant authorities. Yeah, there are several committees that oversee integrity in publication, so they can take action on the guilty authors. Yeah. Okay, so that is plagiarism. So we go to the next big topic, which is self-plagiarism. So you can actually plagiarize yourself, yeah? Now, self-plagiarism occurs when authors reuse their own previously published work or data in a new written product without letting the reader know that this material has appeared elsewhere. Okay, so this happens when you reuse your own previously, you reuse your own data, yeah, your own research data in a new article or a new paper, and pretending that it has never been published before, yeah. You can mention your previous paper by citing it in the same way that you would cite other papers written by other authors, yeah. But you have to cite it. If you don't, then you sort of take the data and present it in another paper, then that is self-plagiarism. Now, types of self-plagiarism. Self-plagiarism can also be further divided, yeah, into redundant and duplicate publication. This is also known, these two, yeah, is also known as dual publication, yeah. Salami slicing, copyright infringement, and the practice of text recycling. Okay. Now, Okay, authors who submit a manuscript for publication containing data, reviews, conclusions, etc. that have already been disseminated in some significant manner. Example, published as an article in another journal, presented at a conference, posted on the internet, must clearly indicate to the editors and readers the nature of the previous dissemination. Okay, so you have to tell them, yeah. If it is as an article in another journal, you have to cite the other journal. Okay, if it's presented at a conference and posted on the internet, for example, you must indicate. I will explain later how to indicate. Okay, the dual publication, which is both the duplicate and redundant publication. Yeah. Now, what is a duplicate publication? The practice of submitting a paper with the same data to more than one journal without alerting the editors or readers to the existence of other identical published versions. So you know that you cannot submit a paper to two journals at the same time. Okay, you can submit to only one journal. If it gets rejected, then only you can submit to another journal. Okay, so you cannot submit a paper to two or more journals at the same time. Okay, and then if the other publication may differ slightly from the original, for example, changes to the title, abstract, and or order of the authors, not much changes to the content, that is data, discussion, and conclusion. Lagi lah, that shows that you are trying to hide the fact that you have already published one paper and you're trying to publish the same paper but under a you want to hide the fact by changing the title, the abstract, or the authors, etc. So that is duplicate publication. Now, redundant publication is when researchers publish the same data with a somewhat different textual slant here. So meaning that the papers may contain a slightly different interpretation of the data, okay? Or the introduction to the paper may be described in a somewhat different theoretical or empirical context. Okay, so actually you are publishing the same data, but in the introduction you tweak the introduction so that it is like the hypothesis differ slightly from your published paper, the hypothesis in your published paper, or you interpret the data in a different way. Okay, you interpret the data in a different way. It's the same data, but you interpret in a different way. And then you add data. You already have, for example, you already have 4 groups of animals in the first paper. You just add one more group and present 5 groups in the second paper. That is also considered redundant publication, additional data or somewhat different analysis of the same. Okay, so you use maybe a different statistical analysis, so these are considered as redundant paper. Okay, so both duplicate and redundant publications are considered plagiarism, And again, the first paper is considered, the first published paper is the genuine one. Whatever other papers are considered plagiarized papers, okay? Okay, instances in which dual publication may be acceptable. Summaries or abstracts of papers that are published in conference proceedings are often subsequently published in expanded form as a journal article. So this is commonly what happens in our case. When we present in a conference, the abstract is published in the conference proceedings, okay? And then later we publish the same study but in expanded form in a journal, Okay, that is considered okay. Another one is an article published in one language is translated into a different language and published in a different journal. Okay, so this one is also considered okay. However, both of these both of these cases, you must inform the editors and the readers of that a second published version exists. So you can inform the editor by a cover letter. You should also enclose the first paper when you submit the second paper to the editor, yeah, you must inform him and also enclose, yeah, the first paper. And the readers, you can inform them in the form of a footnote in the paper itself, yeah. You can inform them in the form of a footnote. Okay. Nowadays, yeah, this is very important because with the internet and all that, it's very easy to search and find the same paper in different publications. So it's very important that you follow all these steps so that you are not accused of plagiarism. Why dual publication must be avoided? So meaning the redundant and duplicate publication must be avoided. Okay, because there is always limited journal space. So if you publish the same data twice, yeah, in two different journals, you deny other authors from publishing their work. It's a waste of editorial time and peer reviewers' time. Okay, and more importantly, it can mislead readers. For example, an author who wishes to study the significance of an experimental effect or phenomenon using statistical techniques such as meta-analysis will arrive at erroneous results and conclusion if the same experiment was counted twice. Okay, so if there are two papers on the same study, other readers would think that it is two different studies. And so they will include it in their meta-analysis and the results will be skewed. Yeah, the results will be erroneous. And this will result in establishment of flawed public health policies. So this one can be even more dangerous, yeah? Okay, so that is why you must, dual publication must be avoided. Okay, there's something called academic self-plagiarism or double dipping, yeah? What is this? Now, a student submits a published paper to fulfill a course requirement, even though the paper had earlier been submitted to satisfy the requirements for another course taught by a different professor. Okay, like most postgraduate students, yeah, one of the condition is that you must publish a paper, yeah. So in this case, there are two courses and you submit the same published paper to both the courses. This is acceptable if the instructors of both courses were informed by the student of the double submission and if both agreed to the arrangement. So this is an internal arrangement within the university. It's okay as long as as long as it is an acceptable practice in the university, yeah? But you must make sure, as students, you must make sure lah, because you don't want to end up, being not passing your course or something like that because you actually you are accused of submitting a paper to the same paper to two different courses. Eh? So you have to make sure as students, yeah. Okay, now I mentioned just now salami slicing. Okay, salami is, I'm sure all of you know, yeah, is processed meat in the form of a long piece of meat, yeah. And usually when you want to eat it, you will slice it very thin, yeah. So salami slicing is actually data fragmentation. Now, if the results of a single complex study are best presented as a cohesive single whole, they should not be partitioned into individual papers. Okay, so when you do a study, yeah, a study, you have several parameters, but the same group, several parameters, and these parameters are dependent on each other in a way lah, yeah. They are not completely independent of each other. Then you should publish it all in one paper, yeah, and not partition it into individual papers. You can write 2 or 3 papers if the parameters are completely independent of each other. You can, but when you describe the methodology, meaning the treatment groups and all that, you have to refer to the other paper. Okay, meaning that you have it's the same. You must mention it's the same group as published in the other paper. Okay, so this should not be partitioned. Yeah, this can distort the conclusions of literature reviews and meta-analysis if the various publications that report data from a single subject sample are assumed to be derived from independent samples. So again, this is the same thing, yeah. the meta-analysis might be flawed because they might think that it's two different experiments using two different groups, yeah. Even though the methodology is similar, but your readers or the people who use your paper to do meta-analysis and all that might think it's from two different groups. So their statistics is erroneous or is affected by this, yeah. Okay. Besides that, sometimes when you divide your parameters, yeah, the conclusion, for example, you divide into two papers, yeah, the conclusion of each paper might be different because it depends on the parameters that you use in the paper. And these conclusions might be different if you actually use all the parameters in one paper. Okay, I hope you know what I mean. So that would be misleading. That would be misleading to the reader. Okay, because the conclusion from these two individual papers might be different from the conclusion if you had analyzed and presented the data as one paper. Yeah. Okay, if a paper submitted for publication represents fragmented data, authors should enclose other papers, published or unpublished, that might be part of the paper under consideration. Again, if you do that, yeah, you have to inform the editor. Okay, you have to inform the editor, and it is up to the editor to decide whether you can publish that paper as it's by itself, or you have to enclose all the data from your study in the paper. Okay, you have to inform them. There have been cases here where people submit the paper, and then the editors actually they will do a literature search on the topic that you submit, and they find other papers that are very similar, and then they will give you the feedback. They will say that they cannot accept a paper because they have found other similar papers by the same authors in the literature. Okay. Okay, so we go to the next topic, which is copyright infringement and plagiarism. Okay, just now I have mentioned what is copyright law, yeah? Now, infringement of the copyright, yeah? Plagiarism, self-plagiarism are copyright infringement. Okay, because copyright means that you own either the journal or the author, depends on what kind of publication it is. Either the journal or the author owns the copyright. So if you take material from that particular paper without citing the author and the journal, yeah, without proper citation, that is copyright infringement. Yeah. Okay, and even some acceptable writing practices, such as extensive paraphrasing or quoting, yeah, or verbatim, yeah, may constitute copyright infringement. So if you actually copy and paste a whole paragraph, for example, that may be copyright infringement. Yeah. Now, Iverson et al. Cautions that the amount of text that can be taken from a copyrighted source without permission depends on its proportion to the entire work. All right. And then, according to the publication manual of the American Psychological Association, authors who wish to borrow text of more than 500 words from a published APA publication must seek permission from the APA. Okay, so this one especially applies to verbatim text lah, ya. Kalau paraphrasing, not so much, provided that you have a few references on the same topic, yeah. Because if you extensively paraphrase from just one paper, then that is almost the same, and that may be considered copyright infringement. And if you copy and paste a lot of material from the same paper, especially if you don't put quotation marks, then that is copyright infringement, yeah, as well as plagiarism. Okay, so you should read the author guidelines carefully and see whether it is mentioned any restriction in the number of words that can be quoted or paraphrased. Yeah. Okay, if you are in doubt, you should always contact the journal. Redundant or duplicate publication may also qualify as copyright infringement because the earlier published paper is not cited. Okay, so this is again, the earlier paper, the copyright is owned by the journal or the author accordingly lah. Yeah, so if you do not cite that, then that is copyright infringement. Yeah, diagrams, pictures, and graphs from non-open access journal, copyrighted and permission must be sought from journal publishers. Okay, so if you want to reproduce diagram, pictures, and graphs, you must get permission from the journal publishers, yeah? Okay, reproduction of figures or tables from any open access journal is permitted free of charge and without formal written permission, provided the author or journal is fully cited. So usually open access journal, you can actually reproduce the figures or tables, provided the author is fully cited. But if you are not sure, you should always write to the publisher and ask for permission. Yeah, I have done that before. I've written to the publisher and the publisher actually wrote back and said, yes, please go ahead and use the figures. Yeah, so that's fine. But it's better if you are in doubt, always write to the publisher or write to the author, either one. Write to the corresponding author. If it's an open access journal, you can write to the corresponding author, yeah? Okay. Now, text recycling. Reuse of substantial portions of text that have appeared previously in other work. Okay, so text recycling is when you reuse a lot of text, yeah, that have appeared in your previous work. For example, 2 or more papers describing legitimately different observations but containing almost identical methodology, literature review, discussion, and other similar or identical textual material. Now, this constitutes self-plagiarism. Okay, especially methodology, yeah? Because we do research in one field most of the time, so our methods usually more or less the same, yeah. But we may have different treatment groups, or we may have different objectives, yeah. But sometimes the methodology can be the same. However, it is better not to copy and paste totally the methodology, because it may be constituted as self-plagiarism. And this also includes literature reviews and discussions, yeah? Okay, because the editors will usually pass your paper through Turnitin, and then they find that it is similar, a certain percentage, and then your paper will be rejected, yeah? Okay, recycling text from an institutional review board application, yeah, for a grant application lah, a proposal application, yeah. Animal care and use committee grant application or other forms of unpublished internal proposal is generally acceptable, yeah. So if you have submitted a proposal to get a grant, and then later you use the same text in your paper, usually it is acceptable if it's from an internal, usually, you know, within the university, things like that, yeah. But if there are proprietary copyright issues with respect to an unpublished proposal or report that was originally written for a private enterprise, when the author was employed by that institution, text recycling may not be acceptable. For example, usually pharmaceutical companies, right? They have researchers, they pay, yeah? They pay researchers to write the proposal, yeah? And then so that proposal belongs to the pharmaceutical company. So you cannot use the text. You cannot recycle text from that proposal when you write a paper, yeah? Unless, of course, with their permission and that sort of thing lah, yeah? Okay, acceptable text recycling. Recycling papers given at a conference. Okay, again, you can, but authors should inform the editor if an abstract or a brief version of a paper being submitted for publication has appeared in the proceedings of a conference. The reader should also be informed via a footnote or endnote here. So this one, sometimes we don't do this, yeah, but actually this is an ethical violation. You should do it, yeah. Especially when nowadays editors, will pass your paper through Turnitin, and then they find that the abstract is very similar to another abstract published in some proceeding, and then your paper is rejected because of that. So you inform him first, yeah? Okay, borderline or unacceptable cases of text recycling. Okay, recycling text from a complex method section of a previously published paper may be self-plagiarism and can be misleading if the template is not updated to reflect the current research project. Okay, so this is what I mentioned earlier, especially methodology section, yeah. It is better not to just take the whole text and use again in another paper, even though the method that you use is the same, yeah. Okay, because the author may be violating copyright rules, that's one. Another one is that you should update the method section, yeah. Even if you are using the same method, you should still update your the information, okay. Please avoid doing that, yeah. Now, authors are urged to avoid reusing their own previously published text unless it is done in a manner consistent with standard scholarly convention. Example, by using quotation marks, proper paraphrasing, and citations. Okay, so for example, yeah, you have already published a detailed methodologies section in a previously published paper, and you are using the same method. Then you should cite the previous paper, meaning that you can write something like the methodology has been described in a previous paper, and then write the citation so and so at all 2019, for example, yeah. So you can cite your own method. All right, if you don't want to write the whole thing all over again, and then especially if there's a word limit for your paper, then you can refer if it is exactly the same. But if there is some changes, you have to write down the changes. So you can write certain methods are updated and describe the updating of the method, whatever, yeah. Okay, so if you do that, that is okay if you cite properly, yeah. Okay, now we go to the lesser crimes of writing. Okay, so these are ethical violations, but maybe not so serious, yeah. Questionable writing practices, failing to indicate the source of funding. So we always write the funding in the acknowledgement, yeah. When you write a paper, the last part is acknowledgement, so indicate the source of funding. Failing to identify possible conflicts of interest. Okay, usually when you submit a paper, the author will ask you to sign a conflict of interest form, so you should not hide any conflicts of interest, okay? Honorary authorship. There is assigning authorship to an individual whose contributions to the work do not earn him or her such status. So sometimes, yeah, people include authors who actually are not involved or didn't help in the project for whatever reasons, yeah, personal or professional, which is wrong, yeah. I will go to the authorship guidelines later, yeah. Failing to acknowledge individuals or companies who gifted materials used in study. Okay, so if there are individuals or companies who actually gave materials such as the natural product or the kits used or things like that, please acknowledge them in the acknowledgement section, yeah. And you should also acknowledge the location or the organization which provide the space for you to do the work, yeah. For us, of course, we must acknowledge UKM for giving us the facilities or the space to do the work, yeah. Okay, now okay, your references, yeah. This one is very important. Yeah, I'm sure everybody knows, yeah. Your supervisor, for students, your supervisor is always asking you to check your references, and even examiners, yeah, when they read your thesis, they will point out that there are references which appear in the text, not in the list, and in the list, not in the text, things like that, yeah. So you must always check your references. Each reference notation appearing in the body of the manuscript corresponds to the correct citation listed in the reference section and vice versa. And that each source listed in the reference section has been cited at some point in the manuscript. Okay, this is important, yeah, because sometimes when you write your paper, you might delete some a whole paragraph, for example, when you are writing a manuscript, and then you forget to delete the corresponding reference. So please check, yeah. All elements of a citation, example spelling of author's names, volume number of journal, pagination are derived directly from the original paper rather than from a citation that appears on a secondary source or a review paper. Okay, you must always acknowledge the original author, the original paper, not the review author, not the author of the review paper or the review paper itself. Okay, so that is why a review paper is very good because it gives you a summary or it helps you to look for the original paper, but you must always look for the original paper, yeah? Credit must be given to those authors who first reported the phenomenon being studied. So if you have several papers on the same phenomenon reported by different authors, then you should cite the first author. Yeah. Authors should strive to obtain the actual published paper. When the published paper cannot be obtained, cite the specific version of the material being used, whether it is a conference presentation, abstract, or an unpublished manuscript. Okay, so if you cannot get the actual published paper, then you should cite it accordingly. Yeah. Do not rely on secondary summary of that work or review paper. It is a deceptive practice, reflects poor scholarly standards, and can lead to a flawed description of the book described. Okay, do not cite a review paper. I'm not saying review paper is not good. Review paper is very good, yeah? And the authors of the review paper actually put a lot of work to read all the papers and review them. Yeah, and it is very helpful for you to start your literature search. Yeah, but when you want to cite, please look for the original paper, read it and cite it. However, if unavoidable, if you cannot find the original paper, always indicate the actual source of the information being reported. For example, according to Smith et al. 1999, as cited in Rodriguez 2003. So the review paper is Rodriguez, the original paper is Smith. But since you can't find Smith's paper, you also mentioned that you actually got the information from a review paper written by Rodriguez. Okay. Okay. When borrowing heavily from a source, always make it clear to readers which ideas are your own and which are derived from the source being consulted. Okay, especially when you have a long paragraph with a lot of information, you do not hesitate in repeating the reference. Yeah? In this case, this author, one sentence, he wrote reference 81. Then another sentence, he wrote reference 81. Again, yeah, it's okay because he is very concerned that you do not think that it is his own opinion, but rather it is referred to. Yeah. Okay. Then further on, he went on to cite. Yeah. Even a few phrases he cite again. Okay. So all in all, actually only the last sentence is his own. The rest are all cited. So it's okay to cite in the same paragraph, to cite the same reference many times, just to make it clear that it is a referred statement or information. Yeah. Citing tables, graphs, and figures. Okay, from traditional journal articles that is non-open access, you must always ask permission from journal publishers. So if you want to reproduce tables, graphs, or figures, you must always ask permission from the journal publishers and cite the journal or the paper accordingly. Yeah? In open access journal articles, so the articles are made available under a Creative Commons license, usually CC BY, attribution only, to allow others to freely access, copy, and research and use the research, provided the author is correctly attributed. Okay, so usually you can reproduce the tables, graphs, and figures, but you must attribute the author correctly. The author, that means you must cite the paper correctly lah. Yeah. If you don't cite, then that is plagiarism. Yeah. And always refer to journal guidelines. If you are not sure If you don't understand the journal guidelines, if it's not mentioned and you're not sure, then you write to the publishers. Okay. Citing online sources. Okay, nowadays, there are many sources online, yeah, okay, which are not scientific papers. Okay. Okay, now citing online sources, you must always refer to journal author guidelines. For open access journals, cite the usual way with or without the DOI. Again, depending on the journal guidelines, whether they want a DOI or not, but you cite in the usual way. Other online sources, example, news portals, blog posts, web pages, etc. Now, for scientific papers, we do not encourage sources which are not peer-reviewed, yeah? Sources which are not peer-reviewed. But if you have to, then please cite in this way. You must name the author or the web page. Sometimes the page, the author is not named, but you have a web page name. So please name it, the date of the paper being published in that web page, if available. Sometimes there's no date, yeah. The URL, now this is important, yeah, the full URL, and the date accessed, because as you know, online sources can come and go, yeah, they can disappear one day. So you justify yourself by writing the date accessed. What is important is that the reader should be able to access the article from the citation given. Now, this applies to all the different types of sources, yeah. Again, let me repeat that non-peer-reviewed sources are not encouraged, yeah? Okay. Reproducing online figures and pictures. Okay, nowadays also we need to, we can find a lot of pictures on the internet that is useful, that you might want to put in your paper. But please bear in mind, not all the pictures in the internet are free to be used, yeah? So if you want to get a picture from the internet, now I'm just roughly showing you the way. For example, yeah, you Google the subject osteoporosis, okay, and then you will get all the images coming out. Now, okay, you Google osteoporosis and then you click images, then you'll get images coming out, yeah. Now there is one icon, or what you call it here, called tools. One button here, yeah, one button called tools. You click on this button and then this one will come out, yeah, this second row. So you click on usage rights and then you will have these three types coming out: all Creative Commons licenses, commercial and other licenses. So if you want free pictures, you go to Creative Commons license, you click on this, and then only pictures which are available free of charge will be shown. And you can click on the picture that you choose, and there will be instructions on how to cite that particular picture or that particular diagram. So you must cite accordingly. Okay. Now only the Creative Commons licenses are free. Other pictures you may need to pay. Yeah, you may need to pay. So this is how you look for images from the internet, and you must cite accordingly in the page that you want the picture. There will be instructions on how to cite that particular picture. Okay. Ethically inappropriate writing practices. Okay. These authors should report observation objectively without exaggerating the importance of the finding or overstating the conclusion. Okay, you must be objective, yeah. Authors should always mention the limitations of the study. Okay. Authors have an ethical responsibility to report evidence that runs contrary to their point of view. So if your data or your results is actually contrary to what you expect, you must always report that. Yeah, it's not wrong to get data that is opposite to your objective. It's okay, it's not wrong, but you don't hide it. You must report it because it can be important. Yeah. Evidence used to support your position must be methodologically sound. Yeah. So if you cite papers that support your conclusion, The papers must be methodologically sound. When citing supporting studies that suffer from methodological, statistical, or other types of shortcomings, such flaws must be pointed out to the reader. Okay, especially if you if you cite another paper to support your conclusion, but that paper, for example, has insufficient sample size, or they use wrong statistics or something, you must point that out if you want to use it, or you want to use that as support. You must point out the limitations or the flaws of that paper that you want to use to cite. Yeah. Okay. Replicability of research. Replication of others' research is the hallmark of scientific enterprise. The method section should provide sufficient details so that anyone who wishes to replicate the study will have enough information to do so. Yeah. So this one, I'm sure you all know that the methodology should be clear enough so that somebody can replicate your work. Yeah. So provide the name, company, city, country of all the materials and equipments used. Data manipulation. Researchers have an ethical responsibility to report the results of their studies according to original plan. If you cannot follow the original plan, yeah, any post hoc manipulation must be described. Yes, for example, elimination of outliers or the use of alternative statistical technique must be described and give the reason for using such techniques. Yeah. So if you find along the way that your plan was not suitable and you have to change it a bit, you explain or describe that. Examples of malpractice. Manipulate the statistical analysis in a way that obscure the actual unwanted results while enhancing the hypothesized result. Okay, so this is wrong. Yeah, this is malpractice. Yeah. For example, you get rid of too many outliers and things like that so that you get your hypothesized results. Not reporting negative results and only report those results that are consistent with your line of thinking. This is another one that sometimes people tend to do. Yeah, you only report the parameters, the results that support your hypothesis, but if you have any results that is contrary to your hypothesis, you don't include that in your paper. Yeah, that is wrong. Manipulation of graphs and figures to distort the presentation of results to make them more consistent with your hypothesis and theories. Okay, this is also another data manipulation. And some researchers have got into trouble, yeah, from other universities have got into trouble when they manipulated graphs. Yeah, okay. Okay, the last part is authorship issues and conflicts of interest. Which member of a research team merit authorship? Who is designated as senior author of the resulting journal article? And how is the rest of the authorship order determined? Okay, so people always quarrel about this, yeah. Authorship issues such as who will be corresponding author and the order of other authors and any acknowledgement of contribution to the project should be discussed before initiating on the project. So actually, you should actually have an agreement before you initiate the project, yeah. Any agreement reached should be recorded in writing, and it should be sufficiently flexible to accommodate changes that may arise while the project is in progress. So actually, SPI always has a publication policy that all authors must sign, kan? Yeah. Okay. Who is an author? The International Committee of Medical Journal Editors recommends that authorship follow the following 4 criteria. Substantial contributions to the conception or design of the work, or the acquisition, analysis, or interpretation of data for the work, and drafting the work or revising it critically for important intellectual content, and final approval of the version to be published, and agreement to be accountable for all aspects of the work in ensuring that questions related to the accuracy or integrity of any part of the work are appropriately investigated and resolved. So authors must fulfill all 4 criteria, yeah? Not just 2 or 3 or 1, all 4 criteria must be fulfilled, meaning that actually the author is somebody who is really involved in the project, yeah, and who is accountable, because when you publish, it's not just having another paper in your CV. That paper you are accountable, meaning that if there's any dispute, any accusations arising from that paper, everybody in the author's list is responsible, not just the first author or the corresponding author, but everybody in the author's list is responsible and can be penalized if proven to be guilty. Authorship means to take responsibility for the contents of the project. Example, being sufficiently knowledgeable about the project to be able to present it in a forum. So every author should actually be able to present the paper in any meeting or forum or seminar, whatever. So that is what it means to be an author. Substantial contribution include aiding in the conceptualization of the hypothesis, designing the methodology of the investigation, and significantly contributing to the writing of the manuscript. Okay. Mechanical activities such as entering information in a database or merely collecting actual data, example, running subjects, collecting questionnaires, should be acknowledged. Okay, so activities like this, known as mechanical activities, should be acknowledged. Sorry, Izzah, a few minutes more, Boleh, Izzah?
Okay, Prof, we can continue.
Okay. Honorary or courtesy authorship assigned on the basis of some leadership position, examples such as being head of the department where the research is carried out, must be avoided. Okay, so just because somebody is head of department or head of the research group but not involved in the project, the name should not be in the author's list at all. Okay, because the person who should be in the author's list must be somebody who is involved in the project, knows what is going on, and is accountable, meaning that you can answer questions if questions arise. So just because head of department or head of research group doesn't mean that that person has to be in the author's list. Okay, supervisor-student collaboration should follow the same criteria to establish authorship. Mentors or supervisors should not award authorship to students whose contribution do not merit it, but should not deny authorship to students who deserve it. Okay, so it's the same thing. As students are concerned, they have to fulfill all 4 criteria. Okay, order of authors. First author is usually the person most involved in the project, can be student, research assistant, postdoctoral fellow, lecturer, etc. So first author can be any of these people who are most involved in the project. Corresponding author is the senior author in the list with sufficient standing to answer post-publication correspondence, usually but not necessarily placed last in the list. Okay, now corresponding author, the author must be senior enough to have some status to be able to answer post-publication correspondence, especially if there are disputes or accusations of ethical violation. Other authors arrange according to contribution to project. Most journals ask for role of each author in the list. Most journals will send an email to ask for the role of each author. Receipt of submission by journal is usually emailed to all authors. Any objection should be raised at this point. So usually the journal would send an email to inform you that a paper has been submitted and your name is listed as an author. So if you do not know anything about the journal, you do not want, you cannot be accountable for the journal because you don't know the project, or you cannot be accountable for that paper because you don't know the project, then you should withdraw at this point. Okay, it's only honorable to withdraw at this point. All right. Okay, this is the, please visit the website for further information on authorship. And ghost authorship is not acceptable. Ghost authorship is not acceptable, even if the ghost author is acknowledged. Okay. Okay, disclose conflicts of interest. Okay, the most important thing is to be, okay, just one moment on conflicts of interest here. For example, stock ownership, consulting agreements to the sponsoring organization, etc. And most journals have formulated guidelines for dealing with. Usually, they will send you a form that you have to fill in if you have any conflicts of interest. Usually, just tick what conflict you may have. Okay, now the important thing is always to be truthful. Be honest. No need to hide anything. Tell the editors and your readers everything, and it's up to them to judge. Okay, that's all. Thank you, Izzah. Sorry for running over time.
So thank you, Prof, for the informative talk. So now I open the floor for Q&A session. For participants, if you have a question, you can unmute yourself and ask directly. Or you can type in the chat box. Okay, I think, Prof, I have a question for you. So let's say if in paraphrasing in the paraphrasing matter, for example, if we copy a paragraph of a paragraph of from the journal, and then we just apa ni? We just find for the synonym of the some word in the paragraph. So is it ethical?
No.
Oh, it's not ethical.
Paraphrasing should be from what you understand from the paragraph that you have read. Then you paraphrase it in your own words. If you just change one or two words using a synonym, that is not considered paraphrasing, that is verbatim text. Then you might as well just copy and paste and put inverted commas, yeah? Put the quotation marks, yeah? If you just change one or two words using synonyms, that doesn't mean that you actually have understood the whole paragraph, yeah? Because paraphrasing is understanding what you have read and writing it in your own words, okay?
So it means that one is called as verbatim.
Yeah, verbatim text. So you might as well just copy the whole text, don't change anything, but put in inverted commas lah. But of course, when you don't do that very often, yeah, don't do that very often, because if your whole paper is all verbatim text, then it will not be, the editors will not accept it for publication. Okay? You will not get into trouble because you have already indicated that it is not your text, it is not your own words, but most probably it won't be accepted lah.
Okay, Prof, thank you. So any other question from the participants? There's a question. So there's a question here from Leong Zinfang. I would like to ask if in a review paper, a student and 4 supervisors, if not all supervisors contribute to the paper, then only the involved authors to be listed.
Yes, you should still go back to the 4 conditions stated by the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors. If they do not fulfill all 4 conditions, then they don't deserve to be authors. You can acknowledge them in the acknowledgement. I know this is this might, if you as a student or as a junior lecturer, this might be difficult for you, yeah. But that is the condition given. So if you are questioned on it, then you might get into trouble if you put somebody who is not involved in the not to say if you're questioned by it, but if there is a problem related to the paper, then the person who is not involved in the research has his name there, then he will be penalized together with everybody else if the paper is found guilty of plagiarism or data manipulation or whatever. So it is better to have your name. This is for everybody, senior lecturers, junior lecturers, professors, and all that. It is better to have your name in the paper only if you know what's going on in that paper and you are accountable for it, meaning that you are able to defend yourself if there's any dispute or any accusations. Okay.
Okay, so thank you, Prof. Is there any more question? Okay, there's one more question, Prof, from Ng Zin Kian. If both students work in the same project, equally contributed to the paper, how to determine who should be listed as first author, or if there is any other ways to solve this?
If 2 students involved in the same project. Okay. Well, if you are talking about postgraduate students, there's only 1 student in each project, right? So 2 students might be doing similar projects, or meaning that 2 students might share the same treatment group, but they have their own parameters, right? Okay, so if you publish your own parameters, then there's no question about it lah. The person who does the parameters will belong to the person who will be the first author, yeah. But if you combine your parameters and publish, then that one you will have to resolve that amicably lah, meaning you have to have a meeting and resolve that amicably. I know it can be a bit difficult, especially when you are a postgraduate student and you must have the paper under your name as first author to pass kan. So whatever it is, you discuss it with your supervisor and the corresponding author lah, who is usually your supervisor kan. Susah nak jawab that sort of situation. Okay.
So need to discuss with the supervisor, right?
Because I know, because each student must have a paper published with your name as first author kan. So if you combine your results and you publish just one paper, then there might be a problem there. I don't know, because I still feel that if the research requires that the parameters be pulled together to get a valid conclusion, then it should be published in one paper. But I suppose the supervisor can explain to the university or can explain to the postgraduate committee that both these students are considered as first authors, yeah. But in the paper, somebody will have to be first name lah. Okay.
I think, is there any more question from the participants? Okay, I think that's all. So thank you, Prof, for the informative talk and also Q&A session just now. So now let's move on to the next presenter, which is a talk by Associate Prof. Dr. Chin Kok Yong, Tips to Avoid Manuscript Rejection. But before the talk, let me read on his tremendous biography. Prof, can I share slide? I want to share the slide, Prof.
Yeah, please go ahead. I don't know how to off my. I think if you share your screen, then it will automatically. How?
Because I think, right?
I have to.
You need to unshare first, Prof.
I need to unshare first.
The stop share is at the top, usually at the top.
That's good. I've closed my file. Is that okay now?
Now it's okay, Prof.
It's okay now, right? Okay.
So now I'm going to read on his biography. So he obtained his degree in biomedical science honors and PhD pharmacology from UKM. He joined the Department of Pharmacology in 2015. He is currently served as publication coordinator of the Faculty of Medicine, UKM. His research interest revolves around the use of natural vitamin E mixture in treating osteoporosis and osteoarthritis. And he is also have interest in epidemiology of bone health. He has published more than 200 journal articles, 4 book chapters, and 1 book. His H index is 34, and the total citation of more than 4,400 citations. He has been awarded with a Young Researcher Award from 3 different bodies. For example, the Asian Federation of Osteoporosis Societies in 2017, Young Researcher Award from the Malaysian Society of Pharmacology and Physiology, MSPP, in 2018, and Young Researcher Award from the Faculty of Medicine, UKM, in 2022. And he has been awarded as the top world 2% scientist according to a list published by Stanford University Elsevier. And he has served on the editorial board of BMC Public Health, Frontiers Endocrinology, Hindawi's eChem, and also UKM's Medicine and Health. So with his experience of publishing in many journal articles and serves on various editorial boards, he is indeed our right person to talk about the tips to avoid manuscript rejection. So without further ado, let's welcome him to give his talk. Okay, so Associate Prof. Dr. Chin Kok Yong, the floor is yours. You can start.
So a moment. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Just want to check whether you can hear my voice clearly, and you are looking at the slide.
Yes, we can hear you clearly, and the slides also, we can see it.
Okay, okay, thank you, Lisa. So I was talking to my friend during lunchtime that I was listening to his relationship problem, and I told him that I'm talking about handling rejections this afternoon. So and he asked for the gist of handling rejections in relationship. But I thought the gist would be the same with handling rejection due to publisher, that would be to be a big thick face and to understand that each rejection leads you to somewhere better. So welcome to our talk today on how to avoid manuscript rejections, manuscript in bracket. So maybe you can um, gather some notes and handle rejection somewhere else also in this talk.
Haven't make it as slideshow.
Oh, okay. So you are looking at a different view, is it? Just a moment.
As a slideshow so that it will be clearer and bigger.
I think I shared the wrong screen, I think.
On screen.
Let's try it again.
It's still the same.
Is this slideshow now?
Yes.
Okay. So again, life is not about roses. We all encounter rejections at some point in life, either in the form of this, okay, or in the form of rejection letter, formal rejection letter, either from ministry, from your potential employers, or somewhere else. So why am I here talking about rejections from publisher? Okay, because I'm quite familiar with rejections, despite the numbers you have heard introduced kindly by Isa just now. I have a lot of rejections.
Sorry, the scene is actually in presenter's view. Can
Oh,
you,
okay,
because we can see your next slide.
okay. Again, wrong sharing. I don't know why. Are you looking at the presenter? Are you looking at our right screen right now?
I think it's okay now because we can see the full screen.
Okay, so that sorry for the technical error because I have the screen actually in front of me. So yeah, I'm not alien to rejections, despite the many papers that I had the privilege to publish. Look at one of the how do I say, on-screen profile. This is captured from the submission website of NDPI. If you look at the website online, meaning the number of publications that actually went online and published, and the number in rejected withdrawn archives, there are 64 websites online and 59 rejected for every um, acceptance that I received in NDPI. I actually have more than one manuscript being rejected. So that's why I say just as academicians or as potential academicians, if you're a student here, you should get used to being rejected. Okay? If possible, want to avoid or minimize rejections as much as possible. So this is the ideal application process for those of you who are not familiar with that application process yet. So when your article is being submitted or your paper are being submitted through the online systems of a journal, it will be received by the editorial desk or editorial team of the publisher or the journal, and then it will be accessed by the handling editor or academic editor. Okay, by this point, if your manuscript fulfill all the basic criteria in terms of formatting, in terms of the required information for a submissions, it will usually pass through the editorial team, and the academic editor will access the manuscript in terms of context. So if your manuscript is readable the language is not poor, and overall at first glance the manuscript is scientific sound, it will be sent out by the handling editor or academic editor to potential peer reviewer, and it will be reviewed rigorously by the peer reviewer. You might question, so how long does this time period take? Usually from the submissions to reach the editorial test, maybe 1 or 3 days, and then the bulk of time actually fall on finding peer reviewer for your manuscript, which take about 2-3 months time. As the academic editor in many journals, usually we have to send out more than 30 to 60 invitations to all the potential peer reviewer to get 2 set of comments for a single manuscript. So finding peer reviewer is very challenging for most of the journal editor. So after being peer reviewed, then your manuscript might receive favorable comments or harsh comments from the peer reviewer, and based on those comments or recommendations by the peer reviewer, the handling editor will have the privilege of deciding whether your manuscript can be accepted or not, or it should be sent back to the author for further editing or revisions. So receiving major revision or minor revision during the peer review stage actually is sort of you're halfway through the peer review process already, and if people are willing to reconsider your manuscript, there's a chance for you for getting accepted. However, there's no guarantee. A reviewer, when he find that you cannot reply his or her comments sufficiently or adequately, he will still reject the manuscript at the second round of peer review. And even I had an experience whereby 2 reviewers are favorable, 2 set of reviewers are actually favorable towards our manuscript, and the handling editor rejected our manuscript, saying that it fall below the standard of the journal. That can happen also, but it's very rare. We usually base our recommendations on the recommendations of peer reviewer. If there's 1 rejection and 1 acceptance, maybe the handling editor will find a third set review to decide whether to accept or reject a manuscript. And then finally, when all parties are satisfied with your manuscript, it will be accepted, and then it will be formatted, copied, copy edited, and then sent for publications online. So there are many ways a manuscript could fail in this process. First, it could fail at the editorial desk stage, whereby if failed to, comply with the basic requirements of submissions in a journal. Secondly, it can fail at the eyes of handling editor. And then thirdly, it could fail during the first peer review. And lastly, it could fail at the second or third revisions. So these are marked by star in this process. But if you attended my peer review talk, then usually this is an ideal process, which take about 3 to 6 months time. But in actual fact, this is what really happened. Okay, the not so ideal publication process, whereby students complete a research project, analyze data, and have no motivation to write. And then if you have no motivation, this is sort of a self-denial stage, whereby you are denying your chance of getting published. Okay, so after you have gathered your motivations, write results, send for internal review, and then your supervisor kept your paper forever, swipe it under the carpet. And it is after numerous reminders that you receive your approval for submissions, and you submit to the journal. I want to stop here for a moment. All the lectures, the lecturers are busy, researchers are busy, even more so for lecturers who are also academicians. Okay, so when they are swiped by their own, overwhelmed by their job tasks, sometimes we forget about the manuscript. So I think it's appropriate if our students here learn to remind your supervisor, do not hesitate to remind your supervisor what happened to your manuscript. If your supervisor have not replied to you after 2-3 weeks, after 1 month, do now to supervisors for comment or reply. Okay, we will be very happy to receive such reminder. Okay, just in case we sleep, we miss your email or we forgot about your manuscript. Okay, that happened because of our busy schedule. So do remind supervisors after you have submitted your manuscript to them for internal review. So after numerous internal revision, you submit to a journal, and now reviewer want to review the script because reviewer take this job for free. Okay, it's voluntary work. You don't get paid. So finally, someone had a message to take a job. You want to peer review. You receive hostile reviewer comment. Impossible answer. However, you finally gather your courage and also wit to reply to those review. Underwent second time review. Sometimes you get rejected, sometimes you get accepted. When you get accepted, sometimes you don't keep your paper forever in queuing to be published, and finally get published. So in such a not so ideal situations, maybe it will take more than 6 months to publish one paper. Okay, so this is actually a reminder for all the postgraduate students. If your requirement for publication is just 1 or 2 papers, sometimes you do have to write more so that at least 1 or 2 will get to the stage of publications at the time of graduation or second viva. Okay, you cannot throw all your egg in one basket for that 1 or 2 paper. So back to our subject, there are some steps that I would like to introduce to you to avoid manuscript rejections. These steps actually seem to be intuitive at first glance. But if you have known whatever I'm going to tell you, just take as revisions. And for the newbies here who have not started publication journey or just about to start publication journey, I hope that this step will help you to prepare your manuscript so that it is not rejected at the very beginning stage of submissions. So these steps could be taken at the stage of manuscript preparations, when you first draft a manuscript, after you have selected your desired journal, and also during the revision stage. So move on to the first stage, manuscript writing. So in order for your manuscript to be considered, you need to write a good manuscript that is as simple as that. Okay, what qualifies as a good manuscript? A good manuscript, regardless if it is a review or it is a research article, it should consistently deliver a single message aligned to the research questions. Okay, your whole manuscript, either it is a review or a research article, then you should deliver a message. You should have a very good research questions, and all the effort being put into that paper is to answer that research questions. So all the message you deliver from result to discussion to conclusion, all is an effort to answer that research questions. And a good manuscript should be free, should address significant issues in the medical world, because we are the faculty of medicine for health sciences, and it should have something that's novel. Okay, it should have something that's novel so that it adds on to the human knowledge pool, and it's free from major design and also ethical flaw. Okay, these are the basic for a good manuscript discussions or manuscript. Okay, and for each of the sections of the manuscript, these are some basic requirements that these are some basic elements that should be contained in each sections of the manuscript. Some of it actually has been described by Prof. just now on how to write a good methodology, how to discuss result. Okay, so take it as just a revisions. In the introductions of a review or research article, we are looking for a single problem to be solved, and the research get to be highlighted with a clear objective. These are the 3 major things a reviewer or editor we should see in introductions. If one of the elements is not there, then we do not know why is the reason we should read on. Okay, and then in terms of methodology, we hope that this author provides sufficient detail to allow replication of studies. Okay, and also for us to judge whether a bias is there any consideration given to address bias in the methodology. In the results, we are looking forward to seeing reasonable interpretation of data that the author is able to present the data in a logical manner. And then discussions, we are looking forward for a fair comparisons of results, and the author are able to argue and provide insight to the data they have obtained. And then in the conclusions, we are looking forward to see a clear take-home message from the author based on the results. Okay. However, for most of those graduate students who are just begin their writing journey, if you look at their first paper, one thing that you observe that their effort of writing or crafting the manuscript is like action of stacking facts. Okay, they'll pull whatever they know about the subject and structure it into a manuscript. Okay, so there's nothing to be sound there. But for a writer, you should know that you're writing a piece of manuscript to sell your idea. Every fact, because our manuscript are factual based, every fact that you stack on that manuscript is actually aimed to sell your idea. Okay, so you should word it carefully. You should word your sentences carefully in order to deliver your idea optimally through your manuscript. I'm going to give you some example. What are issues that you usually see in manuscript? For example, here with the title manuscript with the title effects of vitamin E on bone health and respiratory deficiency, something that's very dear to our field. Okay, in our department. So in the introductions, we look at the introductions and we see that 2/3 of the introduction describe the basic fact about osteoporosis, about the pathogenesis, diagnosis, and standard management. What do you think is the issue here? This is free-flow discussion, so you are welcome to unmute your mic or write down your comment in the comment in the chat. What do you think happens here? So this is actions of stacking facts. Okay. So much of the effort of the authors in crafting their introductions is to stack or gather all the facts he knows or she knows about osteoporosis, but not highlighting what is lacking, what are the research gap in this field. What have we not known about vitamin E and bone health in the presence of estrogen deficiency? Your introduction should gear towards highlighting the research gap in that field, not stacking everything you know about osteoporosis, because whatever you know about osteoporosis, probably the reviewer, the readers know. Okay. The second kind of scenario, this is something that I encountered recently in one of the manuscripts I review. The title of the manuscript is Higher Risk of Low Vitamin D in Women with COVID-19. And this title or the entire conclusion discussion are based on these observations. Women had an odds ratio of 2.8 with 95%, 0.99 to 10.7 odds in having in suffering from low vitamin D status. Any opinion on this? What's the issue with this? The issue with this is that the result of the entire manuscript is based on a rather high odds, which is 2.8, sort of higher risk for women to have vitamin D deficiency. However, this result is not statistically significant. So the authors have overclaimed the observation, saying that it is something of consideration, but in fact it is not something significant. And authors trying to sell these insignificant observations in title and also in the visa and also discussions. So in the end, we have to recommend rejections for this manuscript because the author have overstated their findings, and the conclusion is not supported by the results. Another example, this is actually from our own paper. Okay, Toko China and Gamma telescoping review. When we first sent this paper to the to the journal, the first comment that we received even before reaching peer review is the handling editor asking us, please demonstrate that you have worked in this field before by citing your own studies in this review. So this is how strict and some of the journal are actually, whereby we cannot simply write a review. If you were to write a review, you have to demonstrate that you know about this field, and you have published some origin studies on this field before you can write this. Okay, so that's the first comment we encountered even before the journal submit our manuscript for peer reviewing. Okay, and then the second comment that we received after passing through the peer review stage is that again, for the editor, from time to time, the author just present results from previous studies without going in deeper discussions of how and why such observation can be obtained. So I think this is some of the comment usually obtained by the journal writers as well, whereby if you were to craft a review, your review will sound very like a summary rather than a review. Actually, review require you to critically appraise and also highlight the research gap in the current field. If you are doing just a summary, then your review will not be of high value, and it will be very difficult to publish your review in a good journal. So we are actually getting this comment at the very last stage of peer reviewing, and we actually argue that we arrange our manuscript in such a way that the result of scoping review describe what we have seen in the literature. But we have dedicated our discussions in describing the how and why of such the actions of Toko Triangle and Bhagavata can be seen. Eventually, the editor accept our justifications, and yeah, the article is actually currently published. So to talk about how to write a good original research article, or to talk about how to write a good review article regarding scoping review, narrative review, or meta-analysis, it would take another 3 hours for each article type. So we are not going to go in depth in today's talk. But welcome to join our workshop in our later workshop. So with my experience as a coordinator of publications in medical faculty, sometimes we were invited, me and my team were invited to help with manuscript in certain departments. So these are some of the common issue manuscript that we receive or that we have judged in some department, whereby those manuscripts that are facing a lot of trouble in getting publications are those manuscripts created by master students or even PhD students with a flawed study design. So if the manuscript have flaws in design or ethical issues, no matter how much work we do in polishing the manuscript, it will not get published. Okay, so it is very important to note that you need to solve this fundamental issue regarding your study first, even before considering publishing your data. If it is flawed in nature, the data is flawed in nature, there's actually nothing we can help to make your data publishable. Okay. And secondly, is because of lack of novelty, that the researcher is repeating the previous studies, whether internationally or locally, and with it's very hard for us to find how do I say, to judge or to justify the current studies, because there's no research gap to be addressed. Okay, that's linked to point number 3, and then most of the time, because of short duration of postgraduate studies, many of the papers do not, for the paper study, actually do not achieve the target sample size, and then you need a lot of strange, how do I say, a need of, how do I say, persuasive power to convince a manuscript to accept a study that without is underpowered, okay, due to sample size, small sample size. Okay, and then we have in some department as well. I've seen manuscript that's solely based on audit data and also client satisfactory survey. So the importance of this survey, if it is not cannot be justified properly, then you have a hard time to be considered by the journal. And most of the most prevalent issues with manuscript department is that the data has been manuscript has been written for so long, okay, and the data has been gathered for so long. Some data actually pre-pandemic, and we cannot. I don't know how to sell the data to a journal, such data to a journal. Okay, so these are some common issues that we hope the audience now present currently can avoid. Okay, because some of these fundamental issues cannot be repaired just by polishing manuscript. Okay, these are the fundamental issues that you need to how do I say, correct from the start in order for your manuscript to be considered. The second step is actually to comply to standard reporting. I'm not sure whether all senior researchers and also students here, for each of the site type, whether it's animal studies or human studies, either cross-sectional, case control, cohort, or even systematic review, scoping review, meta-analysis, each of the report or paper type have their own standard reporting. So I've highlighted some of it here. It's not exhaustive. So if you were to look for standard reporting suitable for your study type, you have to Google yourself. Some of the example listed here is Prisma for systematic review and meta-analysis, and they do have Prisma scoping for scoping review, Stroke for observational studies, Consort for randomized control trial, and Arrive for animal studies. So these are the basic good standard of reporting for each study type. So if you are quite junior or in your field, I think it is a good idea that you open up this standard of reporting and use it as a guideline for you in writing your reports. Okay, make sure that all the items mentioned in this standard reporting are achieved at the end of your writing. Okay, so this is one of the example for Stroke. It has many items for each of the sections of the manuscript. So this example for the method sections, whereby, as you can see, you are required to present the study design early in the paper, describe the setting of the studies, describe the participants, describe the variable measures, how the variable measure collected measures, how do you address biases that arise from the study, mention about study sample size, how it's calculated, and also how do you analyze data. Okay, of course, the original Stroke criteria will be very long, and it's up to you to read it. Okay, I will not present any of the criteria here. So just remember that, take a message that there is a reporting guideline for each of the study type out there. Find a guideline and use it to guide your study. in some reputable journal, they will ask you during the submission stage whether your study has complied to such a guideline or not. So these are examples, our personal experience, that our manuscript are being reverted due to non-compliance. So we have written previously a paper regarding the effect of hypersamatosis on bone fracture healing, and it is a scoping review. So we are sending to a journal. The journal mentioned that this scoping review is a type of systematic review. And in their journal website, they already mentioned that for systematic review, they will want us to show that our review have complied to the PRISMA guideline. And to show it, we need to download the PRISMA guideline checklist and then mark in the checklist where all the items can be found in which pages of the manuscript. Without complying to this guideline, our manuscript will not be considered in that journal. So this is how some journals are so strict about guideline compliance, especially for systematic review meta-analysis. So you actually need to read the so this is why it's very important for you to comply to the guideline. You check the guideline and comply to it during your writing. This is another actually studies systematic review whereby during the submission stage, we are asked whether our systematic review has been registered. And we overlook the fact that in this journal, actually in this publisher, NAPI, all the systematic review need to be registered first. So we have to argue in a very complicated manner with the publisher on why we can't register to the Prospero website, which is the standard registration website for systematic review, because if we have done searching and also writing out the result, you cannot register anymore with Prospero. We have to seek out another website for registrations. And finally, we sort out the issues and manage to get it published. So this highlights the importance for you to comply to certain guideline in order for your manuscript to get published, or you're going to write a lot of during the submission process. So this is actually sections that I captured from the peer reviewer page, whereby reviewers being asked to check if submission fulfill the standard guideline reporting, okay, as listed here. So as you can see, if it's stated no for each of the guideline, then maybe your studies will be at the risk of being rejected. The next step about ensuring the manuscript to be accepted or to avoid rejections is actually double check a manuscript before submission. This sounds something that's very basic, but then I'm not sure whether all of you are doing it or not. Okay, so first thing you can do is actually, if you have written the entire manuscript yourself, I think it's a good idea to ask your friend who are not involved in the study to check the manuscript for you, who are not involved in the writing. Because to tell you, we as a writer, we cannot see our own mistake. Okay, we tend to ignore our own mistake. You read your manuscript that you write yourself for how many times, countless times, you miss your own mistake. Another, if you do not have friends, like let's say you are really that isolated, you do not have friends, you might want to leave the manuscript for a few days or weeks before coming back to it and check it yourself. I'm asking you to leave it for a few days or few weeks because I need you to forget what you have written, so that you can come back and check on it using a fresh pair of eyes and mindset, so that you can spot your own errors. And at the age of AI, now that you can use AI services to ensure good language quality. Okay. However, there's a lot of issues in using AI to check your manuscript. Okay. I'm going to use this opportunity to address the usage of AI in scientific writing here. Okay. So first thing, do not what you should not do. Okay, although I'm saying that you can use AI to check the language quality or to polish the language quality on the screen, but what you should not do is to use the AI to generate the paragraph or the entire manuscript for you. You as author are responsible for the content of the manuscript, so it is unethical to use an AI to generate the entire manuscript or paragraph. What you should do is actually you write the manuscript yourself or using your own words. Complete the entire manuscript yourself, paste it to the chat box. Using a command such as, please check the following paragraph to ensure good scientific tone and flow between paragraphs. Okay, and then after this line, you paste your paragraph into the AI chat box, and the AI will check the manuscript for you, following the standard that you require. However, if you use AI to polish a manuscript or for anything in a manuscript, it is only ethical that you declare the use of AI for language polishing in the acknowledgement sections. Okay, and you should also be aware that AI assisted writing now could be detected by turning int. It will show up as a score in turning int. So make sure that this one you need to declare. So if there's a higher percentage, you can argue with the editor or journal saying that it is polished by the AI in the acknowledgement sections. And you have to check. It's not that you can, AI generate the new paragraph for you, the polished manuscript, and then you can just copy paste everything into your own manuscript and then submit for publications. It's not like that. Whatever the AI have a rewrite for you, you have to recheck again to ensure that your original meaning of the sentences is retained. Okay, so I'm going to show you some of the AI policy of a major publisher. For example, in Elsevier, authors are allowed to use generative AI as the technology in the writing process before submissions, but only to improve the language and readability of their work, not to write for them. Okay, it is only to polish the language as per the Elsevier guideline for authorship. And for Nature, large language model cannot be used, are not qualified as author. Okay, and to qualify as authorship, an author has to be responsible for and hold accountable for the research work, and this burden cannot be put on large language model and AI. Okay, so if you use AI in any part of writing process, you should document it and declare it in the manuscript. So some issue with AI writing. Okay, this is recently reported in Nature news portal, whereby now there's a lot of scientific dishonesty has been discovered in the author. In this article, the author noticed that some equations in the paper doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But then the giveaway is actually that this phrase. Please note that as an AI language model, I'm not able to generate specific table or conduct tests. This is actually a standard phrase in ChatGPT. Whenever you ask him to write a paper or generate data by itself. So some author just copy everything, including this warning test, into their manuscript and send it for publications. And it was published. So that actually is a giveaway that the author has misused AI in their writing process. And of course, if I were the editor of the manuscript, this will be rejected immediately. And then I will alert the publisher that this author should be banned. So this example of how using ChatGPT, how we use ChatGPT to polish language. Hope the wording is large enough for you to see here. So usually I will start by the command, please review the following paragraph to ensure the language accuracy good scientific tone and flow between sentences in the ChatGPT. And then he will answer that he would like to perform the task for me, and then I'll start pasting the paragraph inside ChatGPT, and then he will generate the polished paragraph for us. And then you have to declare the use of ChatGPT in language polishing in your acknowledgement sections. You have to indicate which version of ChatGPT are you using, and also the developer and also the country of the developer of ChatGPT. I have tried this for 2 manuscripts. They are currently in review. I'm not sure about the response of the publisher about the use of ChatGPT in polishing manuscript yet. Personally, this is something that I don't plan. And also, as I said, how do I say, the manuscript check by ChatGPT or reformatted by ChatGPT usually would have some numbers in the AI score in Turnitin. So this is actually a page from Turnitin whereby I submitted my own manuscript that has been reformatted by ChatGPT into Turnitin, and it actually scored 22%. How the Turnitin accompanied the tag AI text is completely out of my knowledge, because according to their own declaration, they will not tell you how to detect it. Because if you know how to detect it, people will devise ways how to avoid it. So Turnitin is not willing to declare how they detect AI generated text. But actually, the entire manuscript that I submitted is actually reformatted by ChatGPT so that the readability is increased or enhanced. I'm not sure why only 22% highlighted. Yeah. So that's my experience with AI-assisted language improvement. So the next step is actually check the similarity index. So in UCAM, we use Turnitin to check for similarity index. For journal manuscript, usually it is usually they use another tool called Identica. But I think they belong to the same company and they share the same database. So that's probably the first thing that the journal will check after you have submit your manuscript. The usual range of sensibility is between 20 to 30%. Okay. However, it is hard to argue whether there is a standard in the industry or not, but it is between 20 to 30%. And we should also pay attention to a single source of large similarity. For example, let's say your manuscript only scored 12%. However, 10% of the similarity come from single source. And this is cause attention as well. Because why are you referring to a single article? Why your article and a single article share so much similarity? It's a how do I say, point concern for the editor sometimes. So usually journal deal with a high similarity index differently. Some will award you with direct rejections, and some will revert it to the authors. Before reverting it back to the authors, actually, usually they'll go through the handling editor first or academic editor first. So when a manuscript is reverted to you for textual similarity, so you should check where does the similarity arise. Okay. If it is due to manuscript template, author's name, affiliation, phrases that cannot be altered, then you actually should ask editorial to check again by excluding this similarity that cannot be changed due to template names or phrases, unchangeable phrases. But in the case that you are forced to paraphrase, there are other AI tools for you to help you with either Qboard or other AI tools. So this is a free, I would say, free tool online where it can help to paraphrase your sentences. So this is especially helpful when you want to paraphrase your methodology sections. We do understand that you might, run the same methodology in your lab, and then the same methodology has been used in multiple papers, and there's a lot of textual similarity there. And sometimes maybe keyboard can help you to rephrase your meta sections in order for it to lower down the similarity index. However, the function of keyboard free version is quite limited. It's only to a certain extent that you can paraphrase the sentences. So what you should do is that to get a similarity report and check which sentences can be paraphrased. If you are running out of idea, then you copy the sentences into keyboard and try to paraphrase it and use the edited versions back into your manuscript. And then recheck it again before sending out to the editor. So I work for Ecam for Hinawi, and then sometimes I will be alerted if there is a textual similarity of the manuscript I'm handling. Okay, so if the editorial desk office has detected a high textual similarity index, even at the final version of the word, they will alert editor and ask us to judge whether this level of similarity is okay or not. Most of the time, the similarity arises from the methodology sections, and we will allow the manuscript to pass with paraphrasing. We'll actually return to the author, ask them to paraphrase it. We look at it. If the symmetry index have reduced, we'll allow it to pass through the next stage. However, if a lot of similarity arises from, let's say, introduction discussions, usually we will consider plagiarism. And usually this will lead to direct rejections. Okay. This is our own article, and it's being reverted due to high similarity, and it has not gone beyond to the peer review stage. Okay, so you can read that during initial scrutiny of the article, 25% of similarity has been detected between the text of our submissions to previous published sources. Okay, so the journal house actually sent us their identical report and asked us to rephrase before it can be considered for submissions. Okay, and this is how strictly the process would go for this is a Q3 journal. So you should always submit a manuscript to turn it in before submitting it to journal. Okay, so I'm sure that each of the you can have limited in account, frankly speaking. There's one account with SBI. If you do not have account with your department, you can ask the Gawa SBI to help you to check turn-in result for your manuscript. For those of you with a Gawa size in your department, maybe you can ask for department account and ask the Gawa size to manage or Gawa media to manage the account for you. Okay. So after you have really prepared your manuscript and you are ready to submit it to a journal, okay, the first thing you actually should pay attention to is the journal scope. Okay, by reading a journal scope, you will allow you to understand what kind of papers the journal publishes. Okay, whether it's a single discipline or multidisciplinary journal. Sometimes it do play, how do I say, it play a role whether it matters whether you submit to whether it's a single discipline journal. Usually it's a prestigious journal of the field that discipline, and usually the handling editor and also peer reviewer are expert in the field. And for multidisciplinary journal, usually they publish a lot in various field of medical science. They are not that focused. Sometimes may not be that stringent checking your manuscript. Okay, but it may not be necessary. Nature is a multidisciplinary journal, and publishing Nature is a one stream. Okay. You can check whether it is clinical or biomedical. Some journal consider only clinical submissions, or there are some journal can consider both clinical and biomedical studies. You should also check whether the journal only focus on the regional studies or international studies. So if you are doing only studies in Malaysian populations, it is very difficult to go to international journal. Just for example, in my field, the International Journal of Osteoporosis publish three different journals. International Journal of Osteoporosis, Calcified Tissue International, and also Archives of Archives of Osteoporosis. So if we are doing a multi-standard studies with involve a lot of countries, then usually the report will go to International Journal of Osteoporosis. However, if we are doing regional studies just in Malaysia or just in Southeast Asia, usually our papers will go into Archives of Osteoporosis. It's just how publishers distinguish their own journals. Okay, they set their journal this way. So during your submission, you should pay attention to the scope of the journal, whether they publish regional or international studies. Also, if you are cutting review, you have to pay attention to whether the journal publishes unsolicited review, or even whether the journal published narrative review at all. Okay, so some journal, for example, like +1, they only accept meta-analysis, systematic review and meta-analysis. They do not accept narrative review. So this is something that you have to look at the journal scope. Okay, some peculiar type of publication, for example, protocol, perspective, case report, brief report, and negative results. You should check properly whether the journal will consider this kind of publication or not. Not every journal will consider this kind of publications. Okay, so do check properly before wasting time in submitting your article to them. Okay, you waste your 2, 3, or maybe a week time to receive a desk rejection from the editorial office. So these are example of journal scope. As I mentioned to you just now, let's look at the Archives of Osteoporosis. It's an international multidisciplinary journal. However, it highlights specificity of different regions around the world in terms of epidemiology, reference value for bone density and bone metabolism, technical aspect of osteoporosis and other bone diseases. So it published various aspects of bone diseases. However, it focused on the specificities of different regions. So it published regional studies. So if I'm doing a studies on Malaysia, I stand a good chance to publish in Archives of Osteoporosis instead of International Osteoporosis journal. And this is another second one is actually a journal scope of another international journal of medical sciences. They consider original research paper review and short research publications. Okay, I can submit review there. And they consider both basic medical science and clinical sciences. So even as a pre-clinicians, I can submit there. However, look at the last statement. Do not submit any case report, case series, or case review. So they do not consider any case reports. So it's useless to even submit a case report there because eventually it will be rejected at the editorial desk. So do check before submitting to avoid desk rejections. So you have found a journal that will actually consider your study type. Next thing you do is that benchmark your own manuscript with other papers in that journal. Try to open a few journal or look at the title and abstract of the paper that has been previously published in that journal. See whether your submissions could reach the same standard of the previously published article or not. Okay, compare your paper, benchmark your paper with the previous publication of that journal in terms of significance, novelty, quality, and quantity evidence. As simple as that. You open that sample of research article from that journal. Look at the number of round table that's contained in that publications. Do you have such amount of burden of evidence? Such amount of evidence to prove the research questions, to validate the research question that is being raised in your own paper. If you think that's comparable, please go ahead and submit. If you're looking for something, if you look at the sample article from that journal, it's all groundbreaking observation of the field. And then you compare your studies against those studies. If you think that your submission contains evidence of similar groundbreaking nature, please go ahead. Okay. If not, maybe you want to lower down expectations and then select another journals that publish the same level of evidence as yours. Okay. Usually, of course, if journal with a high impact factor will require a larger amount of evidence in each their paper, and there are more stringent criteria and requirement for papers. And also, if you are looking at certain journal which are very niche, single discipline, published by certain academic society, they might have certain clinical guidelines previously published by the same journal or by the same society that you need to adhere to when you are submitting your journal. Okay, every submission to that journal is expected to follow the same recommendations by the society. Just one very simple example. When you talk about vitamin D insufficiency and deficiency, there are actually two sets of guideline cutoff value for vitamin D insufficiency and deficiency. So which one should you use? One set of criteria is published by Institute of Medicine, USA. Another set of criteria is published by US Enterprise Society. So if you are publishing your manuscript to the Enterprise Society, perhaps you are expected to follow their criteria for vitamin D cutoff. This is from my field, or something that's related to my field. These are some other examples, whereby, again, in this title, higher risk of low vitamin D women with COVID-19. So if this submission were to be submitted to the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism with interfact 6, vitamin D measurement using ELISA would not be accepted because all the other papers in the journal use at least HPLC or GCMS to measure vitamin D. So if you have a paper that measures vitamin D using ELISA, reaching that journal, usually, I've experienced this journal before, manuscript that used ELISA was turned out within 24 hours because the method is not rigorous enough in comparison to other studies in the field. And the second title, also from our own experience, bone health status among Malaysian adults in Klang Valley. We tried to submit this manuscript to Journal of Clinical Densitometry, which is an authority society in bone health assessment. And we calculate the T-score of our subject using Asian standard, and it was rejected immediately by the journal because in the clinical guidelines published by Journal of Clinical Densitometry, they only accept Caucasian women standard in the calculation of T-score regardless of the ethnicity and also gender of the subject. So yeah, if you are familiar with the field and you're not aware of the guideline published by society in their own journal, when you submit your manuscript to that kind of journal, you are expected to follow their recommendations. Next, about journal format. This is a lesser concern. I know that during previous time, a few years ago, we used to threaten you that if you don't format your journal properly, then you lead to rejections. But the situation has changed nowadays. Okay, so a hiring to journal format is not a major concern nowadays because most of the major publishers allow free format submissions, whereby as long as your manuscript makes sense as a journal format of manuscript, it will be considered regardless of format. Some of the publishers even provide manuscript template for you to use. Just copy paste your manuscript into the template and submit. Okay, so I don't think a hiring to journal format is something very problematic or difficult at this stage. However, if you had the opportunity to use a journal template, please learn how to use style functions from your words. Okay, because if the journal had provided you with a template, your copy paste actions should comply to the style functions, or else their online submission system cannot extract the exact information from your manuscript. Okay, so the style function is located in your words as indicated in the red box here. Okay, so usually the title have a style, the author list have a style, the abstract have a style. So when you submit, the online system will automatically extract information from that based on the style. If you style properly, then you will not be able to extract the information. So you have to type your style. So example from Elsevier and also Wiley, you can see that Elsevier have a concept that your paper, your way requirement, whereby your manuscript only need to fulfill the general requirement of a paper. They don't really care about how you format your manuscript and about your citation style, your reference style. As long as it is consistent, they will accept and consider manuscript. They will not return it to you. They will not reject manuscript. The same go to Wiley. Wiley here claimed that there are 500 journals under them who will consider free format submissions. For other publisher, for example, DBI, you can see point number 2 here. Please use a Microsoft Word template provided. Same goes to Frontiers or even Bentham. They all have their own Microsoft Word template for you to use. Just copy paste your manuscript into the template, and you're free to submit. So I think it's the last thing I want to emphasize today, that how to avoid rejection at the peer review stage. That we need to reply peer reviewers' comment tactfully. Okay, so what you should not do when replying to peer review comment. First thing is to reply immediately. Baca, download, review, then reply immediately. I used to do that as students. Nak baca nak buat. Okay, nak siapkan. But just read the comment first. Nowadays, I will read the comment first, give the comment some thoughts, and reply the comments after a day or two. Okay, this will help me to digest the comment properly. And I heard from some of the publisher forums, they say that if the reviewer accept the edited manuscript within 24 hours, they will usually consider that the author have not considered their comment long enough and thoughtful enough. Okay, so yeah, I actually would advise you to take in the comments, give some thoughts, give a day or two. If it's a harsh comment, wait until your emotional level go down before you start replying. Okay, you should not be emotional, and you should not be confrontational in replying the real comments, and you should not avoid comments that you can answer. I have encountered authors who actually ignore the comment they cannot answer. They do not put it in the reply, and this gives a very, very bad impression to the peer reviewer, and they might reject your manuscript for that. Okay, so what you should do in replying comments is that be specific, concise in your reply, be humble as much as possible, be grateful about their comment, and show that you have considered their comment truly, and indicate where the edited versions and the sentences can be found. I'm going to show you some of the response sheet that our group has been using in replying peer review comment. So this is example whereby we draw a table, and then we list down the comment one by one in each of the row, and then we start replying in the next column. Okay, you can see that the reply is point by point, and then we always start by thanking the reviewer for his or her comment. Thank you for comment, thank you for suggestions, thank you whatever, and then indicate concisely what your changes are. Okay, and then quote the change and state where the change can be found. The last step is important because there will be some reviewer, they will judge your revision based on your quoted text. Maybe they are too busy. So they will accept based on your response sheet alone. Okay, if the reviewer, if you don't quote your text, you ask the reviewer, refer back to page 1 in this slide. If the reviewer had to flip back in the script, look at the changes, find the changes by themselves, there is a tendency for him or her to find other things to be commented on. Okay, and this lead to new comment, sorry. Okay, so these are some tips, personal tips. If you are too lazy to draw a table, of course, you are welcome to reply the comment as such, one comment, and then followed by one response. Again, thank the reviewer first, as I mentioned to you, and then indicate your changes, quote the changes, that's which line, copy paste the entire change. So of course, if you are required to edit the entire paragraph, entire section, you do not copy the entire section down. But if you are asked to revise certain sections and the sections limited, you can revise quote sections directly in your spreadsheet. Again, this will to prevent the editor from flipping back your script. So I have reached the end of my advice. Actually, there are more things to talk about, maybe in the sessions. So how do academicians usually deal with rejections? No, you can close your eyes, hide your face when every time you see this email and you do not dare to open it, or you can take rejection as something that's beneficial and it help you to grow. Okay, both of these pictures are taken from a Facebook group called Reviewer 2 Must Be Stopped, because more often than not we receive two set review, one is acceptance, one is rejections. That's totally different. So we give those reviewer who provided a different set of rejection email to as reviewer 2. Okay, so it's just a group that people complain about the reviewer they have encountered. Okay, it's a quite interesting group actually, and they share their experience handling rejections and also reviewers. So this is the end of my talk, and thank you. I'd like to welcome any how do I say,
Okay, thank you.
any comments if there's any. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Chin, for the useful tips on avoiding manuscript rejection. So now I open the floor for Q&A session. Is there any question? You can just unmute yourself and ask directly, or you can type it in the chat box.
Is there anything you'd like to ask using this opportunity? I hope I'm not too boring.
Dr. Chin, I have a question regarding the AI, use of AI. Instead of using the AI apps, what if we just send the manuscript to the proofreader?
Yeah, of course, if you're using a proofreader service, that'll be good. Of course, proofreader the money lah. You have to pay. Yeah. So let's say you are using ChatGPT 3.5, they do not charge people for ChatGPT 3.5. It's just the version 4, you need to pay 20 ringgit, $20 a month. Sometimes you don't know what to write. So for example, you know that you have to write something about effect of estrogen on bone health, but you don't know what to write. Sometimes you can ask the ChatGPT, but or a different AI, because there's another AI. ChatGPT cannot generate accurate scientific information, frankly. There's another AI called S-Site, S and then CITE. So S-Site, the service is 18 ringgit per month. S-Site can generate information based on valid citations. You can ask S-Site to generate a paragraph on this, for example, effect of estrogens on bone health. And then ask it, after that, you look at the paragraph. It may not be most accurate, but you have a baseline about what to write. And then you use that as a skeleton to draft your how do I say, paragraph on that topic. I have used S-Site also, although it can find you references, but the references is usually outdated. So it can provide you a guideline to write, but you should not copy the paragraph generated by a site directly into your publications. Yeah, just provide you a ranker to write.
Thank you, Dr. Chin. Okay, now we have a question from Leong Zimpang. How often can we remind the editorial office for the status of the manuscript under review?
I think we should give the editorial office a fair amount of time to find reviewers and also to check our manuscript. So usually our standards for me of our team is three months from the date of submissions. After 3 months, if there's no response, we can send the editor-in-chief an email to ask about status. Okay, 3 or 4 months, and then you hope for a reply. We have experience whereby we waited 3 months to get the first cell reply. Then the second cell reply came very late, 6 months without reply. So totally we wasted 9 months on that manuscript. But we have already answered the first set of review. If we withdraw now, it's a waste of energy. So we keep chasing the journal editor, but we cannot get a reply. Last, we actually complained to the publisher, complaining that our manuscript has been held up for too long. And it's only then the publisher reminded the editor of that journal to take actions. So things like that could happen. So I think that it is the author's responsibility to nudge the editorial house also if you think that your manuscript kept too long. So a standard would be 3 months, and then after that you can remind the house, the journal every month. To a stage that you decide to withdraw.
Thank you, Dr. Chin. Is there any more question from the participant? I think there's none. So I think we can end our session now. So for participants, please click on the link provided in the chat box for providing feedback, and you will receive an e-cert for after you filling in the Google form. And then so as we have finished with the 2 scientific publication talks, so our webinar has come to the end. So thank you to both of the speakers, Prof. Dr. Iman Nirwana and Associate Prof. Dr. Chin Kok Yong, for their time. I hope that all participants can gain benefit from the talk regarding writing. So thank you all. Wishing you all a pleasant day. Assalamualaikum and goodbye. And then for UKM staff, you need to scan this QR code. Actually, Dr. Chin, we have a question. How can we get successful publication in high IF journals?
I have another, actually, I have a separate slide for this title, which will take another hour. But anyway, to get published successfully in a high IF journal, first thing you need to have impactful studies. Okay, you need to have a study with that addresses actually a significant problem in the field. That's basic actually to qualify you to get published in a high impact journal. On top of whatever I said to you just now, a good manuscript, a good manuscript, good language readability, and also things as such. But it actually heavily rely on whether your study addresses the problem or not. For example, you want to publish in Nature Communications, which is the top journal of the field, you need something groundbreaking. You need to answer something that's groundbreaking. If you cannot answer something groundbreaking, usually you cannot publish there. Or sometimes if you can answer something that's very controversial, that will actually give you a chance to publish in that kind of platform as well. But the burden of proof that you need to carry is also very, very high. For example, in high impact journal, very high impact journal, one single concept need to be validated through many tests to be deemed what do I say valid. For example, let's say to talk about osteoporosis, we need to prove that bone loss in reverse using densitometry, cellular, molecular strength, whatever a range of tests to prove that single test, the single concept bone loss is reverse. Okay, so it can the high impact journal require a large burden of proof and a very significant research question. Okay, that is the gist lah. On top of how you write and also carry your manuscript.
Thank you, Dr. Chin. Is there any more questions?
I think for those of the public for subject who cannot participant who cannot register using their phone to leave their
You can
yeah.
you can enter number at the chat box.
Yeah.
We will register it manually.
So thank you everyone. Okay, hope to see you in future talks.
Thank you, everyone.